and welcome to this episode of the Selling Through Partnering Skills podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Niraj Kapoor. He's a best-selling author of 2 books. He's a trusted sales coach and a LinkedIn trainer. Niraj, welcome.
Brad, good to see you again. How are you? Okay?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. It's good that we get a chance to chat and to, well, me pick your brains around the elements of PQ or partnering skills and how you would help salespeople use these, or how you use them yourself as well, because I know
Yeah.
you sell. So let's just crack on. Let's get on with it. Yeah. Let's start with trust. I always start with trust. For me, it just makes most sense to start there because it underpins so much of what goes on in selling. So talk to me about, what can salespeople do to develop trust with customers?
There's an old saying, it's attributed to many people. I think this one's from Abraham Lincoln. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And one of the best ways to build trust is to listen to people, give them massive value up front, and really keep your promises. Now, the last one is actually the easiest one, keeping your promises and keeping your word. But it's the one thing, Fred, that a lot of people just don't do. They turn up late. They make promises to deliver things and they don't. They don't communicate clearly. All these things are so important. But as you and I both know, common sense isn't always common practice. It just isn't.
It's not that common at all, though.
but really, so much of what business is and getting it right is just getting the basics right. Everybody always wants the magic dust, the magic formula. What is the golden nugget? What's the one thing I have to do? I'm like, dude, if you think there's just one thing you have to do in business, you're in trouble. There is no one thing. There's several things you have to get right. Keep your word, keep your promises, always over deliver, listen to your customers. And that is one of the best ways you can build trust.
Why is it you think that people don't keep their word? What's happening there? Because it's kind of funny. When you said it's the easiest thing, I went, whoa. And then you said, well, actually, it should be, but we don't. So why don't we?
A lot of people just in general are not very good at communicating, just in general. And then there's other people who over communicate excessively. I had to rent a car recently. I got an email within a minute. I got an email saying, this was happening with your car. I got a text. And then I got a phone call saying, just double checking up the email. And said, really, don't you contact me 3 times in 2 minutes? That's just a bit obsessive, whereas other people don't communicate at all. So I was owed money from a supplier, and all suppliers have to pay me up front. That is how I work as a coach. However, when you coach universities, it's a different rule book. They take months to pay. And I spent longer filling out the forms than I did delivering the LinkedIn training. I mean, that's how bad because it was my first time delivering to an American university. And it just took forever. And I still haven't been paid. And no one's been communicating. And it feels like it's going on forever. And yet when you lose that trust, a lot of people, it doesn't occur to them to communicate. Or a lot of people use the excuse of, I'm too busy, which is often a very lazy excuse. If something's important to you, you'll find a way of doing it. Or you'll make an excuse. Those are your 2 options. And I think a lot of it is due to lack of training. You and I both know there's a desperate lack of sales training that goes on in the business world. Every day we have people on LinkedIn complaining about people selling badly to them. Every day on LinkedIn, you have people complaining, this person didn't even connect with me on LinkedIn, but they took my email address from my banner and started spamming me. It's just people don't know how to sell, which in all fairness in lockdown really disappoints me and surprises me. Because during lockdown, everybody's taking Instagram courses. Everybody's writing their own crappy self-help book, or not crappy self-help book, their own crappy self-published book. I've had to read so many books from friends that are just truly awful because they've done it all by themselves and not surrounded themselves with good people to do it. And people just are not learning about sales. They're spending a lot of money on Instagram, spending money on LinkedIn training. They're wasting thousands of pounds on university business courses, which aren't very good, but they're not investing in sales, which is what they should be doing. And as a result, people don't realize communication, trust, listening, these are all integral parts of selling. People think selling is closing a deal. You and I both know it's not. There's so much more to it than that.
Loads more. I mean, how many times have you been asked, can you do some closing training?
Yeah.
And
seriously, stop saying that.
your brain is like, I don't think it's in closing. I suspect it's in opening.
That
And
opening
all
is
the
a
things
huge.
before you get there, and you wouldn't have to worry about it. No, you're right. And again, people should invest in this stuff. It is an investment in sales training, and it's not natural. But sales is a bit unnatural, I think, sometimes. Would you say?
That's an interesting way of putting it. Not enough people say that. You know, sales is a skill, and like any skill, you have to learn about it. That means you have to read about it. You need to listen to it through Audible and podcasts. You need to be attending events about it, like conferences. You need to be speaking to people who are experts in their field, and not just asking them questions, but actually learning from them. And this is my 27th year in sales. I still read books. I still attend conferences. I still ask experts for advice because I'm constantly learning and growing. And that is key. And that's why people ask, you know, why have you been around for so long? And that's the reason why. As much as I know, I don't know everything. And I have to keep kind of almost like refining my skills for my clients because sales and business has changed so much in the last 18 months. The speed of it has been incredible. When I see people still quoting stuff from 5 years ago or 3 years ago or 2 years ago or even 1 year ago, it really worries me because so much of that is out of date now. Some of it still works, of course, but so much of it is out of date.
Yeah. When I say unnatural, I think to you it is natural now because you've been in it so long, and what you said is that you've learned about stuff and you listen and you absorb things and then you will give the right thing at the right time. But I think that's where a lot of people think, well, that's not what salespeople do. Salespeople talk, don't they? They tell you stuff. Yes, but it's just when, it's the sequencing of that, isn't it? So, okay, let's keep thinking about these elements of PQ. And you're kind of touching on it really, which is the element of win-win, having this win-win focus. So, talk to me about that and how salespeople can develop that better. Well, I'm saying salespeople, and you keep saying business people. So pick me up on that if you want to, because I know you work with business people as much as just pure sales teams, don't you?
That's correct. I started off my career because I was a coach. You know, I would describe me as a player coach. So I spent 23 years in sales. Many of that was running sales teams, but I was what you would call a player coach. So what that meant was I was selling, I had a sales target, but my real joy was helping people do better, coaching them to be stronger. I take C players and make them B players. I take B players and make them A players. And I try and take A and make them A plus. That's actually really difficult because when people reach A standard, they think they're the best and there's nothing else to do. And they often slow down and get lazy and then miss target and then blame the boss. So coaching is what I really enjoy doing. It's where I get my satisfaction from because when you help someone's career progress, it is one of the greatest highs you will ever have in business. But in the last year, especially, salespeople have really disappointed me because they book meetings and don't turn up. They rarely apologize. They cancel like 10 minutes beforehand and make all kinds of excuses. Whereas business people rarely do that. Business people turn up for my coaching. They pay me on time, on schedule, don't make excuses. So as a result, I've kind of veered in the last year more towards training business owners and then their sales staff. But everything goes through the business owner because they pay the bills. Whereas so many salespeople, I'll send them invites, which they agree to. I will send them invoices, which they agree to. And they don't even turn up or apologize, which I find shocking, absolutely shocking. You should never treat people like that. If you don't want to go ahead, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But don't ask me to send the invoice, the Zoom invites, the links, everything across to you, and then go cold and never speak again. That's so unprofessional. And it's always salespeople that do this. So that's why I use the term business owners a lot now, because they're the people who hire me. However, through the business owners, once I build a trust with them, then they get me to often train certain members of their sales team or quite often their entire sales team.
Yeah, interesting. So the win-win focus then. No,
Win-win focus is key because business and sales, it's about two people winning. A lot of salespeople go into a call thinking, okay, I've got to get this deal to keep my job, or I've got to get this deal to get my commission. And they go in with their own selfish perspective. But if you go into any kind of meeting, any kind of phone call, or any kind of Zoom or Google Hangouts or Microsoft meeting, anything like that, with the attitude of, I'm going to help this client win. I'm going to help this client succeed. Then you both succeed. And to me, that's a win-win. Put the other person first, help them out, help them get results, and then you get results. And I think if more people had that attitude, sales would be a much more enjoyable job and certainly a much more enjoyable process.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we use quite a lot of sports analogies, don't we, when we're training, because of high performance. You talked about being a player coach, but in sports, there's usually only one winner. Sales, again, it's a bit odd because both people can win, both people should win. That's what you're setting out to do. If they do, then you will, more than likely, as long as you've got your numbers right. And so for me, that's where the win-win crosses into this interdependence element, that my success is going to be predicated on your success and vice versa. I know that you said to me just before we started recording that, yeah, you put a slightly different word or a different way of looking at it. What was it you were thinking?
Well, I think it's really important people understand when you work with a customer and that customer has success because of you, because you've over-delivered, which not enough people do. A lot of people just about do their job, but you got to over-deliver. And that's so important. I do coaching with people. What I often do are 50-minute follow-up sessions. I don't charge for them. And sometimes the 50-minute becomes 20 minutes. Sometimes it's even half an hour. I don't charge for this. It's a follow-up. It's extra value. And people really appreciate that. I had a new guy start with me recently. Before he even started, he received a copy of Daniel Disney's book in the post, Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide. This book's about 15 quid it cost me, and another £3 to post. £18 it cost me. But I still sent him, look, LinkedIn training is important to you, and I'll give you all the value I can, but make sure you're reading. Check out this book. It's my gift to you for becoming my client. Thank you for that. He was like, oh my God. He was just gobsmacked. No one's ever said. I said, well, look, it's not just about you paying me and me doing my job. If I'm just doing my job, it's not good enough. You have to over-deliver. It's so key. It's one of the most important things that not enough people consider. It's like the great Jim Rohn saying, always do more than what you get paid for in life. Jim Rohn's a guy, if you don't know many people, he's a guy who mentored Tony Robbins, the world's peak performance coach, and that's what you have to do. So that's all about over-delivering. I'm going to have a look here, my notes I made on interdependence. It's all about collaboration. So whenever I send across a proposal to a client, I'll often say to them, look, here's a proposal. It's not in a PDF format. It's in a Word format. And that's very deliberate. And I want you to add in anything I may have missed, or quite often in a few days, you might have some more ideas. Just add those ideas in and come back to me. That is collaborative. I like the word collaborative. It's better than interdependence, but the word collaboration, it's about working together. And it's about being humble enough to say, you know what? I may have missed something. I don't know everything. Let me know your thoughts. That makes it like I respect the person's opinion, and I want to know what they have to say as well. It's not me saying you must do this. Yeah. It's a collaboration. It's a partnership in many ways. And that's absolutely key.
I'm all over collaboration and partnership, you know that. But no, it's interesting what you say about the proposal. I've got a colleague and what she trains and what she does. She puts massive watermark across every page, draft.
Yeah.
Just to say, look, it's not the done deal. You change it, come back to me, change the bits that you don't like. Yeah. Or don't like, wrong word, that don't quite work, or that we can do better even, or I might have missed. It's an ongoing.
It's a nice idea. I think it's a really nice idea what your friend does. And that's the way it should be done, because you want to have the feedback. You don't want to say, okay, this is the way it has to be, because people often, when they're investing in sales coaching or any kind of training, they're doing it for a number of reasons. Quite often they've had a previous bad experience, so naturally they're a bit hesitant. Or in many cases, it's the first time somebody has worked with me in this level. So naturally, they're a bit nervous. So you want to make the process as easy for them as you possibly can, and as interactive for them as you possibly can. And when you do that, it just makes the whole business process more enjoyable, because people are naturally going to be a little bit concerned if they've had a previous bad experience, or if it's the first time they're working with you. So always make life easier for people.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about training here, but that goes across the board. The advice would work for anybody selling anything, really. Yeah, make yourself easy to deal with. Yeah, I mean, this is going to lead us into this next bit, which I'm starting to call transparency. Though transparency can mean different things to different people. So if we go back to Steve Dent's original stuff, where he talked about this ability for self-disclosure and to give feedback. So giving some information about yourself, but also giving information back to the customer, back to the client about themselves. So again, talk to me about how this affects salespeople, or how you do it,
Yeah.
whichever way.
Well, I've written down here, it's by providing honest, direct, and timely feedback. That is key. And self-disclosure and feedback are really important skills. But it depends what you're going to feed back to the customer on, Fred. So if the customer does something you don't think is right, if you say, look, I don't think this is right, this is wrong, the customer immediately goes on the defensive and arguments can start. I learned that very early on in my coaching career. So if I'm speaking to a client and they do something I disagree with, for example, a client recently said to me, I want to have some one-on-one LinkedIn training. Now, I could have said to them, that's a really bad idea. You should get your whole office involved because they're going to learn way more. That's arguing with them. So what I said was, can I suggest something? Certainly. And he said, certainly. And I said, okay, what difference do you think it would make instead of just coaching yourself? I coach the entire company. How much more do you think they would learn rather than just you learning it? And I stopped talking. And I wait for 5 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds. Because if they come up with the answer themselves, they're more likely to go through with the change. But if you criticize or say, no, I wouldn't do it that way, I would do it this way. Again, it's not collaboration, it's me telling the client what to do. So again, you have to choose your words very carefully. Not enough people think about their words. And look, I'm quite guilty of this because don't forget, I'm Indian. If you're listening, I'm Indian. Indian people talk too much and too fast. I'm also grew up in Belfast. Irish people talk too much and too fast. So for long periods of time, I would just speak on autopilot half the time. And now, as you can tell in this conversation, I'm really slowed down. I'm being very careful about the words I use because the words that you say in any conversation really do matter.
That's funny. Indian and Irish, a tiny bit of Spanish blood, and you would have the you'd have the genes for the fastest talking person ever, wouldn't you? But no, it's true. And again, I can hear that you're doing that. It's coming across very clear. It's very considered, which is a good thing to do when you're being interviewed on a podcast.
Very true, but also in
I've made a
business.
note for myself here for when I'm a guest, by the way.
That's good. But one thing people think about as well, Fred, is in a business conversation or a sales conversation, so many people speak so fast.
Yeah.
And that often is mistaken for nervousness or not knowing what you're doing. But if you speak a bit more slowly, a bit more considered, and you're capable of having pauses in the conversation like I am, you come across as more, not just authoritative, but like you know what you're talking about. And that's very important.
It is. No, and it's a skill, and it's one we practice. It's our trade, isn't it? And you like this one. I produced some videos a little while ago, and I got somebody who's helping me. And I got this really cool program that you can edit stuff in, Descript. And I asked her to look at it and understand how to do it. She said, right, I've edited it. And what she'd done is it's got some brilliant functionality. She took out every single gap, every single filler word, and shortened it all down. She goes, I've saved 2 minutes of video because it says it should be shorter. But really what happened is I was speaking like this all the way through. I sounded incredibly nervous. There was no dramatic pauses. I was just one stop for about 5 minutes. Like I had, again, it was a good chance to coach and to feedback is that I'd done this stuff very deliberately and it was there for a purpose.
Good.
They were funny though. I'll send you the first edits.
Yeah, please do. That'd be quite fun.
I sound really, really funny. No, that's cool. So yeah, pick your words. And what was interesting, I want to touch on about giving customers feedback, and that we do have to do it because I think sometimes salespeople don't want to. You don't want to upset the customer. You don't want to say something to them because then they might not like you or something. That's part and part of a sales job, isn't it? That you are there, and that can be where you're going to add a lot of value by giving them feedback that what they're going to do might not be the best idea.
There was a book which came out about 8 years ago. It's still one of the best-selling books today on sales called The Challenger Sale. And what it talks about, a lot of it focuses on the importance of questioning a decision maker. And that a decision maker will have more respect for you if you question. And it's a very good point. And everybody loved this book, apart from Jeffrey Gitomer, who goes, what a pile of crap. You try questioning a CEO in a Fortune 500 company, good luck with your next job. And it was quite funny when he said that because it's true. And I have questions, even though the majority of my customers are small business owners, I do work with the big corporates just once or twice a year for half a day or a full day. The biggest one would be Barclays. So I know what it's like questioning a VP or a CEO. They hate it. If you question what they do, their egos can really get affected. and they won't say anything to you, but they won't hire you again. So you need to be very, very careful. You've got to pick, I don't want to say pick your battles, but if you're working with small business owners, you can question what they do. If you're working with CEOs of Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies or FTSE 100 companies, you have to be very careful how you choose your words and question them. Yeah. Because they will never hire you again. I've had that happen to me quite a few times. And it was only after it happened, then I heard Jeffrey Gitomer say, don't do it. And I'm like, why couldn't I have heard this 6 months earlier? So it's good to question them. But like I said, it's much easier to question a small business owner than it is a CEO of a large business.
Yeah, or at least frame it that say, this is part and parcel. This is what I will bring. But I will be doing this. It doesn't necessarily make it any easier, but it's what we need to do to get the best. But no, I totally get it. I've had similar situations.
Yeah. It's embarrassing. So what you're trying to do is the right thing, but the other person's ego gets in the way and they just take offense so easily. It's like with podcasting, so many people will invite me on their podcast. And I will say, okay, tell me.
What? I thought I was the only one, Niraj.
Sorry, you're about number 160. Sorry, Fred.
Anyway, nice meeting you. Tell us where we can connect. Sorry, I interrupted you. What a rubbish host.
Everybody's got no, it's fine. But during lockdown, everybody is setting up a podcast nowadays. But the problem is most of them aren't doing it properly. They'll often say things, there's no questions, we'll see how we go. I'm like, really? Are you that good? Because if you're a very experienced podcast host, you can improvise and see how it goes. If you're starting out, you've got to have some questions prepared. You need to know where you're going. And I asked them, what kind of numbers do you have? They're like, I don't know. I said, okay, how are you going to promote your podcast? LinkedIn? I said, well, that's not good enough. A full episode on LinkedIn, 40 minutes. No one's going to listen to it. I'm sorry. They'll listen to a 90-second clip. Nobody's on LinkedIn going, a 40-minute podcast. I must listen to this now and stop working. It doesn't work like that. So many people just don't think or don't give consideration to things sometimes. They really don't. And how you prepare and how you plan and how you do things is important. And when I say to somebody, look, if you don't know your numbers and you're making it up as you go along, it's just not the kind of thing I want to do. And my God, so many often get so offended by it. It's like I've just attacked their mothers or something. It's like I've just attacked their entire family. But no, you have to learn to take criticism if it comes from a good place, Yeah.
I'm the host. How can you question me in this? It's not a very good one. No, I was watching something last weekend about Michael Parkinson. The research that guy did and the way that he did his stuff, he didn't just rock up and do it, which is why he was so good. That's why he was so good. Cool. So let's carry on talking about these elements of PQ in the structured way that I've developed to run a podcast. Okay, let's do that. What one are we on? I've forgotten. No, we're going to talk about
comfort with change and future orientation.
Yeah, comfort. I'm going to leave future to last. Makes most sense. So comfort with change. Yeah, talk to me about salespeople and change. Whole podcast episode itself potentially, but
that's pretty much actually. I mean, people they just do. Nobody likes to change. Most people, unfortunately, would rather be unsuccessful and never change than actually have to change and achieve success. That's how difficult change is. It really is. And nobody likes it. So if you make someone do something different, you're automatically going to get a no. So a number of companies I speak to and do sales training with, and staff say, I will never pick up the phone. You cannot make me pick up the phone. If you say to somebody, look, you have to pick up the phone, it's your job, they're not going to do it, or they're going to do it very badly. So again, a lot of it comes down to question techniques and say, okay, so tell me, what do you think is going to happen when you pick up the phone? Okay. And what do you think might happen? Are you going to die? Is someone going to die? Is someone going to die if you pick up the phone? I mean, literally, is the world going to end? Because a lot of people think it will. What do you think is the best possible scenario that could happen when you pick up a phone? And do you have a sense of humor? Because I often look back at some of the phone calls I made and laugh at how bad I was, because it's important to laugh about yourself. And people take cold calling so seriously. One of the worst experiences I ever had was just over a year and a half ago, before lockdown. I had 2 members of staff complain to HR about me during the break of the training session. HR called me in and they said it was against their human rights to make cold calls. And I said, hang on a second, you work in sales. No, we're not salespeople, we're account managers. I said, okay. And they complained it was against their human rights to make phone calls. And they felt it was a form of abuse. I mean, seriously, that's how terrified people are of change. I mean, can you imagine how I'm glad I can laugh about it now. It was so embarrassing. I'm trying to explain to this head of HR, look, it's not abuse, okay? This is their job. They should not be in sales if they can't pick up the phone. I'm not asking them to make 50 phone calls a day or 40 or 30 or even 20. I'm saying make 10 phone calls a day. That's not difficult. If you can't do that, change professions. Seriously, 10 phone calls a day is not difficult. It really isn't. I'm not asking you to make 40 or 50 or 60 a day. I'm saying make 10 calls a day. It's better than what you're doing at the moment, which is 2. So it's all about progress. But people are terrified of change. So I always talk about what outcomes can you get. You're terrified of change? Okay, tell me why. Because you have to acknowledge it. All right, now you've told me why. What do you think of the good things that will happen if you change? What do you think of the benefits? What improvements do you think it will make to your career? What difference will it make to your confidence? What difference will it make to your abilities? How much more will it help the client if you pick up the phone and call them? Okay, and if that happens, how's that going to benefit you? So it's much better to give people outcomes. And again, get them to give you the answers. Because if you tell people what to do, it's not coaching, it's dictating or managing, which is very different. A lot of managers don't know how to coach staff, which is why they hire people like us to do it. Because we know the language we should use. We know the questions we should be asking. And that's what it is. It's asking questions, Fred, and getting the other person to give you the answer. Because if they do, they're more likely to follow through.
That experience of abusing human rights has made me giggle. And it's what you've just said there has also reminded me of a funny time where I can't remember whether it was a complaint. But anyway, it was some feedback I got, which was that the team didn't think I knew what I was doing because I kept asking them questions. I'm like, brilliant, best piece of feedback I've had. I'm clearly doing an excellent job. Because it'd be way too easy to tell them what to do. It's too obvious. So yeah, it was funny. It was funny. But yeah, again, it's back into questions. Questioning is such a strong skill.
Important.
Yeah, or such a strong skill. It's such an important skill to have. But why do you think people do sometimes find it difficult to do that? To ask
Most
questions?
people rush through the sales process. They try and get to the price as quickly as possible. And then once they get to the price, the person will say no or send me a proposal. And then think, oof, I got through that. I'll send a proposal when I get back to the office. And then they spend the next 3 to 6 months chasing it or not chasing it. The person just gets stuck in the pipeline. People just are often not sure what questions to ask. Or they ask dumb questions like, who are your competitors? That's a dumb question. We have something called the internet. You should not be asking people who their competitors are. You should know who the competitors are. The kind of questions you should be asking are, and again, this comes down to taking a genuine interest in your customer. Looking at where the industry is right now, where do you see it in 3 to 6 months? You can't see a year to 2 years ahead at the moment. It's quite difficult. Where do you see it in 3 to 6 months? That's interesting. And what you just said there, why do you say that? I'm just curious why you have that perspective. That's a good question. It's not a big open question, but it's a nice question. But I don't ask more than 3 questions in a row, because you start to sound like a journalist after that. So I'll often ask 3 questions and then just repeat what the person said so they know I have been listening. And if it says something interesting, I'll comment on it. If they say something unexpected, I'll question it and ask, that's really interesting you said that. Why is it you think that way? Or what outcomes are you trying to achieve? So if you work with me, what would make you happy? And these are just really simple. They're not complicated questions. And I think for me, I've done it so often now, it's almost organic for me now. But these are important questions to ask. You work with me, what ROI are you expecting? What are your expectations? Because again, it's only by asking questions you can really understand somebody. Because there's a certain amount you get on a LinkedIn profile. There's a certain amount you get on somebody's website. So you get a basic understanding, but it's very basic. But for deep understanding and to really help people, you have to ask questions. There's no other way around.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you will have started selling similar time to me, when the training that we were given would have been about asking those BANT or MAN-TC or whatever questions, because that's what you needed and it was acceptable. Even spin to a degree, what's your situation? Now, I think you'll be careful with that. You should have an understanding of that and be demonstrating that and then getting into those implication things and where do we want to be ultimately, those outcomes. So there's been quite a shift and people are stuck in the past because they're still saying, how many sites have you got? How many employees have you got? What's your annual turnover? Oh, really? Have you not got the internet at your office? It's like, crazy.
When people ask me how many people work for your company, the first thing I say is, "Have you not looked at my LinkedIn profile?"
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't be asking me that question. Number of people who contact me each day saying, "Hi, I'd like to know who your head of IT is." I'm like, dude, look at my LinkedIn profile. I'm the boss. And I got a part-time virtual assistant. That is my company. But because you haven't looked at my LinkedIn profile and I consider you to be lazy, I'm not going to reply to your email. And that's what happens. 99.9% of emails do not reply to. And about 95% of LinkedIn messages I don't reply to. Because if you're
Yeah.
so lazy, you don't send me a proper email. I'm not asking for it to be eloquent and beautifully written. But if you don't make the effort to research my business or who I am not going to reply to you because you are not worth the effort. And salespeople really need to understand this, because salespeople complain a lot. And business owners complain a lot as well, but they don't get much of a response from email. And that's because the emails they send are so bad, And I'll often say, out of curiosity, what book have you read on prospecting or email writing? And they look at me completely blank and said, "That's the problem. You're just making it up as you go along. Stop it. You got to get coached. You have to understand these things, Don't just make it up like everybody else. Otherwise, you're going to come across like everybody else. And you have to stand out. You really do have to stand out in the business world nowadays, because so many people just look and sound the same.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And the whole thing around emails and how email stroke LinkedIn message, it's almost, probably shouldn't lump them together, but for the sake of this conversation, even the thinking behind that is changing at a pace, isn't it? I'm almost worried to ask you what's best practice now, because by the time this goes out, about 2 weeks, oh, Niraj, there's nothing. But what is the thinking at the moment? Because I've got an idea on this, and I'll share after you
One
do.
of the best ways to communicate on LinkedIn, first of all, I rarely send LinkedIn messages. I do voice notes or I do videos, because your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion comes across so much better. Video is the best by a mile. But let's be realistic. A lot of people are introvert. A lot of people are shy. So I recommend they do voice notes instead. Because in voice notes, if you're an introvert, your intellect, your thoughtfulness will hopefully come across. If you're an extrovert, your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion will come across. It's different according to different people. But that's generally how I communicate. And I leave about 15 to 20 voice notes a day for people. Some are as simple as happy birthday. In fact, if you look at LinkedIn yesterday, Holly Allen did a post about me. She goes, "Niraj left me a voicemail." It was brilliant. It was just, I loved how he came across. I loved how he sounded. I got to do more voicemails now. Post about me just because I left her a voicemail to say, "I heard you in Daniel Disney's podcast. I thought it was terrific, by the way. What you said between 5.5 to 6.5 minutes on prospecting was brilliant. And I wish more people did that. I just wanted to say a huge thank you and well done." That was it. That's all I said. It took 20 seconds. And she ends up writing a post about me on LinkedIn to say thank you. So, that's the advantage of doing a voice note or a video. Your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion comes across. And I always mention something about their profile. So this morning I got a LinkedIn invite from a lady in Australia. Never spoken to her before, have no idea who she is. But when I researched her, oh, Melbourne. My daughter went to university there. And all of a sudden I'm talking about Monash. And then she came back to me saying, "Oh my God, the coffee culture there is amazing." And we're just having a talk back and forth. This is how you build relationships. Okay? To every salesperson and business owner out there, business is relationships. Do not underestimate that or think of it any other way. The old saying, "people buy people," is key. And if you make the effort to research me and know my business, there's a very good chance you're going to get a conversation out of it. But if you're too lazy to do that, and you start a conversation talking about yourself, you will not get very far. You just won't.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, it's using the tech, and this whole kind of, you can't use tech to build a relationship. You can just use everything. Use everything you can. Voice notes, video. Yeah, send something. You show you've done your research. It is very doable. Yeah, and it's keeping it short. It also helps you be quite concise, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even though you're allowed up to 60 seconds per voice note, majority of mine are 30 to 35 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, brilliant piece of advice. Love it.
Thank you.
So, future orientation is our last thing on the agenda, which you're actually covering anyway, because I'm not sure how many times you said outcomes. It's a good half dozen, and that is what we're looking at. So yeah, just expand a tad more on the future orientation.
Yeah, I mean, I made a few notes here. It's really important to know what somebody wants to achieve. not just their needs now, but what outcomes they want, because it enables you to measure your success working with that person. Because not enough people think about business being long term. A lot of people do business with somebody and think, whew, okay, I'm getting paid now. And that's good. Of course, you need money to fund your business. That's important. But you got to be thinking long term, because ultimately long term is where the money is. It's how you grow your business, or at least sustain your business. And you got to be thinking, the way to do that is, what does this person want to achieve? What outcomes can they want? How can I help them in the future? How can I better serve them? Not how do I get more money off them? How do I better serve them? How do I better help them? How can I over deliver more? Because when you do things like that, Fred, that is how you get more business long term, and more revenue long term, and more sustainability long term. I'm so proud of the fact that the clients I had in January, in most cases, are still the clients I have in September. That's quite rare in my industry. Most people get one-off coaching, or they might get 2 or 3 sessions. I'm not getting clients, because bear in mind, when I started, I was getting clients for just 2 or 3 sessions. Now I'm getting clients for 10, 14, 18 sessions. When I say a session, by the way, I mean 1 hour a week, or 1 hour a fortnight, or 1 hour a month. That's incredible, because I'm building these long-term relationships. I understand their lives completely. And to those of you who don't know, I recently did an entire 2-week tour of England and Wales. It was huge. I was driving 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, just to see a customer in my car. That is massive, especially on the M1 and M25, which are horrible motorways, in many cases going through roadworks in 30 mile an hour and 40 mile an hour zones. It's not pleasant. My clients were so grateful, I cannot even tell you. And in some cases, because it was summer, they brought their children. I said, bring your kids along. It'd be nice to meet them. And all of a sudden, you're bonding with the children. It's a different experience. Majority of my clients have said to me afterwards, I've never had a supplier do this. They'll take you out for Christmas now and again, Christmas dinners now and again, or send you a box of biscuits for Christmas. But that's it. Nobody really takes clients out for dinners much anymore, and certainly doesn't say, bring your kids along, I'd love to meet them. Bring your partner along as well. It's about standing out and really going over and above the call of duty. Because bear in mind, competition are chasing after your customers every single day. And many of them are cheaper than you. So you really have to be good at your job. And again, not enough people really think about this. How do I build loyalty with my customers?
Love it. And again, you so elegantly elaborated the question I was going to ask you, because you sort of said, what does the person want to achieve? Not the job role, not the title. Yes, you've got to deliver on that as well. They'll have KPIs, they need to hit those. But you talked about the person, and then talked about getting highly close to the individual and really, recognizing what they're all about, what makes them tick. That's going deeper.
Yeah. You say to somebody, what do you want to achieve? They'll say, well, I got to hit 4.5 million pounds in revenue this year. I said, great.
Cool.
Why?
Happy days.
Why do you want to do that for? What satisfaction going to get? Is this, if you do this, do you get promoted? Does a boss say, well done? Do you do it for internal satisfaction? Do you do it because you want all your team to succeed? And that's a question I like to ask a boss, because some bosses are selfish and self-centered. I'm sorry, they are, and it's all about them. But when a boss says, I really want my team to succeed, it's music to my ears, because that's somebody I really enjoy working with. So again, the questions I ask are very deliberate, because I want to know what good answers the other person is going to give, because you can tell a lot by somebody, not only by the questions they ask, but again, the words they use, the answers they give.
Brilliant. Niraj, you have given some excellent answers. The words you've used have been superb. Thank you so much for spending some time with me to share your thoughts around this. You've clearly prepped for it, and you know your stuff. I mean, I knew that anyway. Wouldn't have asked you otherwise. How do people get in touch with you? I mean, you mentioned LinkedIn. I'm going to hazard a little guess that might be a good way to do it, but are there any other ways that you respond to?
I got 13,500 followers. Last year I had 5,000. So it has grown massively in the last year. And again, that's mainly because I give so much value to people. I'm not trying to sell my products or my books or my courses every day. I will sell them now and again, of course, because you should. But at the same time, it's giving value. But follow me on LinkedIn, Niraj Kapoor, or go to everybodyworksinsales.com. Go to my website. There's 10 sales tips for 2021. It's a small PDF that will help you. It's free of charge. And you're more than welcome to go there and download that. I really hope it helps you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Niraj. Really enjoyed speaking to you.
Absolute pleasure. Always good speaking to you, Fred. Take care.
Take care.